Oh, how great and how pleasant it is to dwell amongst Star of Zion subscribers, Zionites, Livingstonians, and all who are tuned in virtually to witness these living legends who are lovers of justice with hearts and minds and bodies to forge for fortitude a fruitful future in unity. I am Guitavia Parrish, a Livingstonian who walked proudly beneath thy maples and thy oaks from 1996 to 2000. Today's program is about those who dared to fight for justice. Throughout 3 centuries of oppression, Black Americans struggled to survive and make indelible imprints in the American and world fabric of human and civil rights. Tired of inferior schools, Jim Crow laws, voter suppression, and racial violence to include battery, bayonets, bombings, and lynchings both by civilians and legal officials, African Americans risked their lives for justice. The 1960s gave way to what is known today as the student movement. Across our nation, young men and women fired with the imagination of the nation in its entirety with a tactic called the sit in. This tactic was not new. Since Reconstruction, African Americans protested against segregation, and in the Congress of Racial Equality, they staged sit-ins in the 1940s, while the NAACP is noted for successful sit-ins in Kansas and Oklahoma in 1958. However, with young, focused, and determined young people, the civil rights movement would never be the same. The student sit-ins shook the movement's power structure as direct action became the preeminent tactic and much focus shifted to the masses of African Americans, their social and economic struggles. These new freedom fighters in the movement were everywhere: Greensboro, North Carolina, Nashville, Tennessee, Atlanta, Georgia, and yes, Salisbury, North Carolina. I present to you our moderator for the evening, a class of 1970 Livingstonian who entered Salisbury on the heels of the brave young men and women who peacefully and politely planted their seeds. Dr. Hassan Crockett currently serves as the Dean for the Division of Liberal Arts and Humanities at Livingstone College, and under his leadership, we will explore the indefatigable plight of those who sat down so we could stand up. Dr. Crockett, good evening.
Well, good evening, Dr. Parrish, and thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, that wonderful history, and welcome everybody to the Living Legends history. One of the things that is so important to us is that we are not only members of today's society, but we also have people who are members of history, and they were there. And being there lets us know that it is critical for us to understand how, when, where, and why we did what we had to do during the Civil Rights Movement. And so this evening, we get the opportunity to speak and visit with two of our living legends. They include Dr. Marjorie Canard and Dr. Brian Norman Jr., two Livingstonians who were there, who participated in the most important part of our 1960s history. So let's start talking with our wonderful guests and let them tell us, in their words, how they challenged the oppressive times of our segregation and the fact that we and they brought us to the light that Dr. Parrish taught about today. So first, woman first, Dr. Marjorie Canard. Please introduce yourself to us.
Thank you, Dr. Crockett. Just Mrs. Canard, not Dr. Canard, but that's okay.
Fine.
During those days at Livingstone, when we arrived on the campus as freshmen, there was a feeling of student activism already there. We didn't have to go seeking it because it was already there. The NAACP was a very vital organization on the campus of Livingstone at that time. And I remember its president, Richard Stewart, who really rallied freshmen and sophomores around to become active with the movement. Of course, at that time, we didn't know what the movement meant, but we quickly found out about it because Reverend Edgar French had been a part of the civil rights movement here in Montgomery, Alabama. As a matter of fact, I understand he was put out of Montgomery because of his activism as a member of the Montgomery boycott. He helped to plan the Montgomery boycott and was really, really active. You see, so he was there with us on campus. Then Dr. Duncan, our president, was very supportive of student activism at that time. So we were not being rebellious as far as the college was concerned. We had the support from the college. I think that's a good start off point. Brian might have something else to say, but the climate was right for us in those days.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, Dr. Canard. I mean, Mrs. Canard. Wonder you're a doctor as far as I'm concerned. Your experience gives you.
Thank you.
So, okay, well, Dr. Brian Norman Jr., please give us your thoughts about how you became so involved in the civil rights movement at Livingstone College.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm glad to be a participant. And the person in the background is my wife, Kay. She and I and Marjorie are all in the same class. So we came there with a little fight in us, and we were looking to participate in the civil rights movement, and we're looking for venues in which to do it. And since Richard Stewart was the organizer of the movement, he took the lead. And fact is, when they were demonstrating, they remember, Marjorie, you remember Sheila?
Yes.
Yeah. She was very fair skinned. In other words, she could pass for Caucasian.
Yes.
And so when they went down to demonstrate, they let Sheila go up, purchase a ticket, and go in. And then I think Richard stepped up and asked for a ticket. They said, well, you can't go, we'll sell you a ticket, but you can't go in here. You have to go in from the Church Street side. So they said, well, you just let Sheila in. So, yeah. And then that's when they were not forceful. They just they didn't create a disturbance. They were very respectful and everything. But the theater owner, a manager rather, he's the one that called the police because of their willingness to stand in and try to get into this, to challenge their segregationist program.
Yes. Now, I'd like to say too that our participation wasn't just hodgepodge. We decided that's what we wanted to do. It was very organized. In Greensboro, it was organized. In Durham and Raleigh, it was organized. And in Salisbury, on the campus of Livingstone College, it was organized. They had areas. I remember J. Elton Cox, who was an AME Zion minister. He was the representative in our area. And he kind of met with us, talked with us about what to do, how to conduct ourselves. If one thing happened, what we should do next, and that kind of thing. And that was very helpful to us because we got the feeling that we were secure in knowing that we did have the support from a larger group, a larger organization. And so we were taught exactly what to do.
Right. And that's a very good point, that this was not a hot or on the moment, spur of the moment thing. It was planned. And that fact is, the whole civil rights movement was a planned and progressive type of organization, even though we had a lot of different ones, but we all had the same goal.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I'm just talking too much, but there's so much to say. Yeah. And Brian and Kay, I don't know whether you did it, but we had dates, Dr. Crockett. We had boyfriends and girlfriends, and the boys would take the girls to the movie, and we had to sit upstairs in the movie. Well, now I think at first we didn't realize, because I'm coming from Washington, D.C., things were organized and we could sit wherever we wanted to sit. But we went upstairs and sat in the balcony. But at that time, we weren't thinking about segregation. We just thought that we were going up into the balcony because that's where lovers go. That's where boyfriends took their girlfriends, up in the balcony. So it wasn't a big deal. And we would look around and we would see our friends and all sitting up there. And it goes to show that you can live right with injustice and not realize what you're dealing with. Yeah. And that was us at that time. We were new. We were just coming home from home. We were 17 years old, 18 years old. We didn't know what we were doing. So if a boy wanted to take us to the movies, we, of course, had to walk a certain route up to Ennis Street. We couldn't just walk any old kind of way. They taught us in our freshman year. Okay, you remember, we would walk up Monroe Street, I think, to Fisher. Walk Fisher to Ennis. And then we would go to town that way. So there were certain rules and regulations that we were taught from the campus leaders, our dean of women and such as that, who taught us exactly what to do so that we wouldn't get in trouble with the whites in the community.
Excellent. That is such an important point. Now, I came in 66. So you guys, you paved the road for us, because now first we got to tell everybody that this was the Capitol Theater that you desegregated. So let everybody know, for a historical point, it was the Capitol Theater. And as you said, we had rules and we had different girlfriends. And however, we went and sat downstairs in the Capitol Theater because of you. Because of what you did. We're talking about 1966.
That's right.
Years later. And
that's right.
That is awesome. And we had Capitol rules. I always tease, teaching the students there now, talking about rules. Remember, women could not wear pants on campus.
Ooh, no, absolutely. Wear pants.
Do I know about that?
No, indeed. We couldn't wear pants. And the fellas dressed up all the time. We didn't wear jeans or anything like that. They wore ties. They wore nice shirts. They didn't wear a lot of T-shirts and all of that. See, they wanted to prepare us for what we would face out in the community. And Livingstone College students in the community were respected.
Mhm.
I would say we were respected because we carried ourselves in a certain way.
And I think you're absolutely right. And that was how we were taught to carry ourselves, as you said, during sit-ins. You had to dress up.
Right.
They had women, they would put on your white gloves, men would be in ties. You went to the sit-in and represented the race while you're out there protesting.
Exactly. We didn't just look any old kind of way.
Exactly. That is such an important point. But Dr. Norman, tell us how you felt going to a segregated theater. First, where's your home, Dr. Norman?
Well, I grew up in Salisbury, so I was very familiar with, going to. Now, blacks could go to the Capitol Theater and the Victory Theater, but the State Theater, which was further down on South Main Street, was strictly white.
Okay. So the State Theater was the theater that was integrated. The Capitol Theater, but the State Theater. That's very.
And then but the Capitol Theater was the largest one, and they carried the top-rated movies at that time.
Okay.
And so that was the one.
But
I left Salisbury. I graduated from high school. I went into the Navy, and I was in the Navy, and they had integrated the armed services were completely integrated. And growing up in Salisbury in the South during that time, it was completely segregated. So I joined the Navy, and they shipped us off to Raleigh. And once we were sworn in, they put all the whites and blacks together. And everybody was trying to find because it was strange gatherings for both of us, the whites and the blacks. And we had to leave here and go all the way to Illinois on a Pullman train. And they said, I don't want blacks together and whites together. I want it all mixed, and you better find somebody that you can bunk with. And that's what we did. And so we, between Raleigh and Waukegan, Illinois, understanding and friendships. Fact is, they carried us through all of our basic training and also throughout my time in the Navy. And we still come in contact with some of those people now. And then when I got out, I entered Livingstone. And of course, we had been dealing with talking about the marches and, integrating the high schools in Little Rock and things like that in the Navy. So when I got out, I was already kind of fired up to participate actively in the civil rights movement.
Very good. Yes, so, I think historically, soldiers, black soldiers returning World War I, World War II, returning from a situation where they went and fought for freedom. And now they come home and they can't go to the theater. So there was, you had a part of your history, a part of your existence where you left segregation, went to fight for freedom, and now you're back home facing segregation again. And I think a lot of soldiers, like you were saying, you were already used to being desegregated. You were already used to having familiarity with white people. And so now you're back in a segregated situation.
Right.
So okay.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say that after the arrest of the 16 students and everything, they put them in jail. And that's when the student body, I think there was about 100 students standing out in front of the jail, singing songs with, in front of the jail. All of the songs that Dr. Parrish was talking about, we were singing all of the civil rights songs, that with a lot of verve and energy.
Do you all remember? Go on. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I just want to jump in. Do you all remember Max Yoder? He was the first white student that came to Livingstone at the time we were there. Dr. Crockett, you were there with us. If you came in 66, you were there with us.
What wasn't didn't Max Yoder, didn't he wasn't he
Max Yoder.
Didn't he die in Vietnam?
No, he went to Vietnam. As a matter of fact, I talked to him on the telephone. I said I was going to find Max Yoder.
Awesome.
I was going to call him up, and ironically, his telephone number was in the alumni directory. And I just took a chance. I called, I left a message, told them who I was in case something had happened to him. At least they would know who I was and all of that. And he called me. And I said, Max Yoder, this is Marjorie Williams. I said, I think you were in my class at Livingstone. He said, oh, I remember Livingstone. He said, it was one of the most beautiful experiences I had. He said, but I was not in your class. He said, I think I was in the class of 66. So he must have been in your class. Anyway, he got arrested with us.
Right.
Yeah, he got arrested
for integrating the balcony. You would always go to the balcony.
Take us up to the arrest. Take us from when you went from the school, organize yourself. Give us the organizational time when you got together, and how you decided, when you decided you were going to go down to the State Theater. When you went to the State Theater, give us the whole scenario. Take us from the beginning to the arrest all the way. So please take us, the two of you, share that experience.
Well, Marjorie would be more attuned to that than I was, because I was there after all of the planning and everything had been taking place.
Well, as I said, we were an organized group. So we knew what we wanted to do, and we got all of our students together, our NAACP students. You know, it's just like it is today when we fight for rights. Everybody is not for it. Some people were scared to go. Some people didn't want to be bothered. They didn't think it was a big deal. But those of us who were on the cutting edge of that, we just didn't know what we were doing. We just did it. And so, as I said, Elton Cox, Richard Stewart, and the others, they got a group of us, and we walked. We had picket signs and everything. I mean, it was
where did you make your picket signs? Where were you on the campus? Where did you go? Where did you make your picket signs?
We made our picket signs just out on the green.
Okay.
Out on the lawn. Okay. We had paint and whatnot, and we made our picket signs. And so we were intentional. So when we marched, we had our picket signs, and we went down there, and we did civil disobedience. They told us to leave, and we said no. And just like Brian, we started singing. I mean, we thought we were really big time civil rights people. We started singing just like the
you just didn't know it.
We just didn't know it. We didn't know it. And of course, on the campus, they always taught us hymns and those civil rights songs. We already knew them. So we just sang and sang, and we had freshmen and sophomores and junior. It was a lot of us. And they arrested people like Von Eason, Max Yoder. I didn't get arrested. I wasn't getting arrested, but I certainly was there with those. And we just kept singing and talking. And I think they may have arrested about 10 of our students. And they actually went.
It was 16. It was 16 people arrested.
Yeah.
And they kept them in jail overnight.
Yeah.
Okay.
And,
hold it. I want to get more details on that. But before we get there, there was a question in the chat. Dr. Parrish said one of the most important things of the civil rights movement were the songs. So what songs did you sing? She wants to know, what were the songs that were sang by Livingstone students in their fight for justice?
Oh my goodness. Kay, you can help us. It was
I'll tell you. and it was just one. It was one of my favorites. Still is. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. And you know that one. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Keep on marching, keep on walking till the last phrase is
yes. And there
Okay.
were so many others that we just sang and sang. You know, it was a period of camaraderie because we were all together fighting for the same thing. And so much happened in Salisbury as a result of that. When we got there as freshmen, they were touted as the all-American city. Okay, you remember that? Everything had all-American city. They had all kinds of banners. So they did not want a whole lot of attention called on Salisbury. So I think they were more understanding. They didn't want a lot of trouble.
No, because the Klan was still active.
Oh, amen.
Active in the area, and we were trying to get a confrontation, but the city fathers, they contacted Dr. Duncan and Wiley Lash, who was a prominent grocer in the city, and the mayor. They talked, and after a while, Richard Stewart and those called off the marches and everything, so that they would go to the movies. They went to the movies for a week to watch movies. Dr. Duncan and Wiley Lash watching movies for a week. And then after that, then certain people in the community and then some students would go and integrate. And then after 6 weeks, then the whole policy changed at the theater so everybody could go, regardless of race.
Take us to the 16 being arrested. Take us to that time. What happened? Give us that scenario. How did you get arrested?
The thing about it is the Klan showed up. The Klan showed up.
When was this? When did the Klan show up?
They were over there across Ennis Street on the other side of, what do you call that statue that was there at the time, Brian?
That was a flame statue. But they were they were on the other
They were on the other side.
How did you guys feel about the Klan showing up? What was your
the Klan showed up. When the Klan showed up now,
were they dressed?
Were scared.
No, but
I don't remember them being dressed. But the thing is, most black folk were not afraid of them.
All right.
Fact is, you had some black guys that really
out of cover.
Dr. Perry said the statue is Feme, F-E-M-E. I'm not. Flame. Okay, F-E-M-E. Dr. Perry.
Yeah.
Fame, F-E-M-E. Okay, all right, Dr. Perry. Thank you.
And they've since moved it to the Irish Cemetery.
Okay, so the Klan shows up, and they were protesting against Livingstone.
They were protesting against the students, what the students were doing, because you see, we were a threat to other businesses too. Exactly. And they thought we were going to go to other businesses and do not harm, but because they know that we weren't going to harm, but we were still afraid of them because we didn't know what they were going to do to us.
Of course, that was the whole point. Intimidation. So let's give us a 16. What 16? Go ahead.
If I could just add this. That we also had a Kresge's here, they call it Kresge's, sort of like Woolworths in Greensboro.
Yeah.
So that would have been the next obvious target.
Okay. So you're planning
to do the theater first.
Okay, good. You had a plan. Very good.
That's the plan.
Had a plan. Now, so the 16, give me the whole scenario that the 16 got arrested. How did that impact the Livingstone? How did that impact the city? How did it impact you as students? Who were the 16? You don't have to give us their names, but they got arrested. When did they get arrested by the police? Was it chaotic? How did the arrest come down? When did it happen?
No, the arrest was peaceful. They arrested.
It was nonviolent. Yeah,
Right.
it was nonviolent.
Yeah.
They didn't cuss or do anything. They just put their hands behind them. Von Eason and all those kids, Max Yoder and others, they put their hands behind them. The girls had their hands behind them. They locked them up. And I think Elton Cox and the rest of them got them out of jail, I think the next day, but they had to spend the night in the jail.
So were they
Marjorie, you forget that your future husband, John, he was a second-year student in seminary. He went down to the jail to talk to the sheriff and those people that arrested him to get them out of jail, and also threatened to bring in more of the NAACP and some of the other civil rights groups.
Oh yeah, John didn't play, and those were his boys too, because he was over Dodge Hall during those at that time, and he didn't play with all that stuff. And of course, people were upset because the students were locked up. Imagine Livingstone students locked up for participating in the civil rights movement. But you know what? But those kids weren't scared.
No,
they were not scared. They came out of that jail still walking high and holding their heads up respectfully. And they would talk to us about it and all of that. It's not a place where you want to go. And I don't know if that was a criminal. Brian, do you know, was that a criminal?
Oh yeah, they arrested them for trespassing and everything, but they never did bring him. They always continued to, when it was supposed to come up for trial, they would continue it. So it was continued until they decided they weren't even going to bother with it anymore.
That's good. Okay. That's good.
Okay. So the arrest was for trespassing.
Yes.
That was the violation. You got arrested. And so that were there a lot of police? Did the police come in?
No, there were only a couple of detectives there to arrest the students and everything.
Yeah, there were a few policemen too to do because they did so many, and they put them. Now I remember a truck. I remember a police truck.
Paddy wagon.
A wagon, a paddy wagon. So they put them in that paddy wagon.
Yeah.
They put them in a paddy. So they got the full effect.
Full effect.
I didn't get that full effect. You know, I wasn't going to be, I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to, but I was there. I was there with them. But it was something. It was really a time to remember and a time that made you proud.
Yes.
I was proud of our students, and I was proud of the whole campus. And I think Dr. Duncan was proud too. I think he was
participated.
He would do that. Yeah,
I'm sure he was. I got two stories. One in 1968, when Martin Luther King was shot, we were on campus and we organized ourselves to go march downtown. I don't know if you guys heard this, but you heard this. And the police and state troopers surrounded Livingstone College and would not let us leave. They drew their guns. They drew their guns on us. We were ready to march off the campus. We were going to march downtown to protest the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
They had the bullhorns. You will not leave this campus. And they drew their guns on us. And we had to dodge behind and hide behind things in order, and because they said that you would, and we were marching. We were getting ready to leave the campus. We were marching. That's one event. There's a lot more to that. And then the second event I like to talk about, Dr. Duncan, Dr. Samuel Duncan. He was my president also. And so a group of us political science students, we went to the state. They had a state school. All the schools in the state of North Carolina went to Raleigh for the state legislature, student legislature. So we all the schools, every school, black schools, white schools. And so we had our team together, political science, and we said, we're going to go down and protest miscegenation. We said that we wrote a bill, and we said that we're going to say that miscegenation is wrong, and we want to change miscegenation. So, you know, that people of different colors cannot marry one another, black people. So Dr. Duncan, I never will forget, he called us to the office. He said, now I'm gonna tell you something. You're going up to Raleigh and you're going to protest. Then you're going to say that the state law that prohibits blacks and whites from marrying is wrong, and you want to change that law, and you're going to run into resistance. And I want you to know, he didn't discourage us. He said, I want you to do that, but I want you to be prepared for the backlash.
Yes.
Because you're going into the belly of the beast and talk about how people who love each other should be able to marry each other regardless of their race. And he supported us. He was afraid. He said, I'm gonna let you know, I was a little, I'm behind you, but you need to prepare yourself for what may happen for you going into Raleigh, North Carolina, and saying that black folks and white folks can marry one another.
Well, now, Dr. Crocker, what made you all bring that up as an issue back in those days? Because we didn't have a lot of blacks and whites on the campus or nearby for boys and girls to be liking each other the way they do now. Now, college students, they just want our black boys.
I know. Totally different. Totally different. Yeah. It wasn't the fact that we were saying that people, it was the principle. And we were political science majors. And we realized that in North Carolina, then when we talk about segregation and we're talking about the dehumanization of people, and particularly of black people, and that we said, no, we should be allowed, or people should be allowed, not us. You know, I have a cute little black girlfriend.
Yeah.
Not us. We should be allowed, anybody should be allowed to marry who they want to marry.
Yeah.
And then it was the principle of keeping people away from one another.
Yeah.
Segregation. This is another form of segregation. And so that's us as political science majors. Now we were let me tell you, you mentioned Dr. French, oh boy, you start talking about folks who we just loved.
That's right. Oh my goodness.
Just taught us how to be strong people. And that's what we're doing now. Dr. Parrish, we're fighting this fight right now with our students. But okay, so all right, so we talked about, we talked about the fact that you guys you went and you protested and you got arrested. So after the arrest, what happened when everybody came back to campus? What was the problem? What went on campus when everybody came? Did you meet again? Talk about their experiences?
The NAACP was a viable organization on the campus. It was a big organization. I mean, it was not small time on our campus. Now I don't even know if it exists on the campus, but it was, so that when they came back, the organization was just energized. Of course, it was, as popular as any other major organization on the campus. Students loved to be a part of it because there was so much going on at the time. The climate of the time made it that way.
Okay, so that's awesome. Go ahead. Go ahead. You were gonna say something, Dr. Norman?
No, I was just saying that a lot of times we had bonfires on campus too, to help energize the students to participate, and to rally. I don't think they do that anymore.
No,
okay, I'm looking. There's a question in the chat, and I can't find it. So, but please help me with sometimes people find, this is a question in the chat. Sometimes people, and this is from Dr. Splon. Dr. Splon is a professor of English currently at Livingstone. Okay. Sometimes people find themselves desegregating situations without there being their initial intent, and they do it, she's saying, without intending. Was any of this the case with Livingstone students movement? Did they desegregate? Did we desegregate ourselves? And I think Ms. Canard, I think you spoke to that. We automatically, your class, you went upstairs. You automatically went to the balcony, and it wasn't the intent to segregate yourself, or it wasn't the intent to desegregate. She says desegregate. So was there any times where you went in and desegregated a situation and you did not know you were desegregating a situation? Anytime you went somewhere and they were supposed to be segregated, but you walked in and didn't know it was supposed to be segregated, and you end up desegregating someplace in and around?
Well, you know, while we were at Livingstone, they provided opportunities for us to work together, blacks and whites. For an example, we always had exchange students. You all remember those exchange students that would come to Livingstone. They would be from Barnard, they would be from Wellesley, they would be from some of the white schools. They would come and stay on our campus for a semester, and our student would go to that university for a semester or for a year. Yeah. So they were preparing us to work with people outside of our race. And we always had a week of prayer and other opportunities where we would go and we would be with white students in churches. They always had these opportunities for Livingstone students to go into the community in white churches and all of that. And I guess that was their way of desensitizing us to the issue of segregation and all, and also helping the community of Salisbury because they would see black students coming. We had good sense. We were articulate. We looked good. We were smart. And see, you send your best. And Livingstone at that time, all of us were the best. So they could send us anywhere, and we would represent.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Norman.
Yeah, see, you were talking about 68, so we graduated in 64, and therefore we were recruited by institutes, the Sterling Winthrop Research Institute, which is a scientific organization, to work. And basically, we were working in an environment that was totally white, except for me and a couple other blacks. But we were doing scientific research and publishing papers and things of that nature. And we felt comfortable in doing it and felt equal to everybody that we were participating with.
Yeah, I dare say our students helped to integrate a lot of situations where we didn't even realize we were doing it. Now, I do know this for a fact. I don't know if it was, where did Larry Poe wind up? He left Livingstone and was it UNCG?
Who was that?
Larry Poe.
Oh, he went to University of North Carolina.
Okay. The president of the University of North Carolina came to Samuel Duncan and said, we want to integrate our campus. Could you send us your top students to come and, enter? We let them come and all of that. And they took some of our students who were Livingstone College students and took them over there to that college and that university. And I know Larry and some of the other students graduated from there, but they still call themselves Livingstonians.
Excellent. A couple of points. Holly Zacharias, she says that the NAACP is still alive and active on Livingstone College.
Good.
And another person put in that Albert Stout Sr. was very instrumental in making sure that the NAACP was visible in Salisbury and at Livingstone.
I remember him. Well. Yes.
Williams said, put that note in the chat.
So when I returned to, after I finished my professional degree and so forth, after about 2 or 3 years, we came back to Salisbury, and I served as president of the NAACP for about 14 years.
Oh, fantastic.
That's right. So they haven't left the fight.
Leaders. Yes, leaders. And let me say this, so we're talking about leaders. I'm going to make a plug for one of my classmates. His name is James Cockram. And James James Cockram, he did a new version or another version of Lift Every Voice and Sing. You know, he's this fantastic musician.
Yes, he is.
And it's going to be played in Carnegie Hall April 24th.
Oh my goodness, that's
We got
wonderful.
tickets, and we're going up there. And those of you who want to go, please contact Carnegie Hall. And it's going to be played by, I'm trying to think of the name of the orchestra, but it's an all-Black symphonic orchestra.
That is wonderful.
In 130 years of the Carnegie Hall presentations, this is the first time they had an all-Black.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Yes.
That is fabulous. Crockett, did you have a brother at Livingstone at the time you were there?
No.
Did you have a brother? Okay.
No, but there were Crockett's. You're talking about the two Crockett's, but
the Crockett twins. I think they were Crockett twins. Yeah.
So another piece. So the students come back. I want to get back to our wonderful sit-in and desegregation. We're going all over the place, which I love. Get back to, because we got such a rich history, and it's not being told enough. We were telling a little bit. One of the things that Dr. Parrish does is she helps tell this history of Livingstone, and I think it's an excellent idea. So what happened after? So you guys, you come back, you talk about it, etc. And so what kind of campaigns did you have, the NAACP and etc., to continue the movement? Because you're right in the midst of it. Now, when you're talking about, so what year, that was the segregation, I mean, the arrest was what year now? What year were you arrested?
That was in 62. That was in 62, February 26th.
Okay, February 26, 1962. So this is in the meat, the heart, the pulse of the civil rights movement was going on right then. So what were your future actions? What else did you do and to make sure that the Black people in Salisbury, the students at Livingstone, will participate in the civil rights movement?
Well, I think I don't know if any of the students rode the bus, but they used the Freedom Riders. The bus would also give an itinerary and tell them where they were going to be. And if any students from Livingstone or any other colleges around, if they wanted to participate, they knew where the bus was going to be and they could participate. I don't know if any of our students did that or not, but
they put the word out, and they put the word out.
The word was out.
The Freedom Bus. Oh, that is awesome. That the Freedom Riders were in contact with Livingstonians. That's great.
Yeah. But I think if you would be interested in knowing that in Salisbury proper, after we finished with them, things kind of tapered off, wouldn't you say, Brian? They opened things up for us, didn't they?
Everything opened up.
They opened up because of the respect they had for Dr. Duncan and what he was trying to do. Dr. Duncan could get anything. So the students could go anywhere. We could go into any store. We could do anything we wanted to do. We got hired. Some of our students worked part-time in various places, but it was something that during those early days, because even a lot of us traveled by train and by bus, and those locations were also segregated. And so we worked with that too.
So employment, you helped desegregate employment. You're talking about public transportation, which was a big piece. That's what the Freedom Riders were all about. And you helped desegregate that. Another question, Dr. Parrish asked, how was the theater eventually integrated? Now we're talking about the State Theater. So how was it? So was it the Capitol Theater or the State Theater? The Capitol.
When that one integrated, the others integrated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the stores, some, like Ace Strikers and all of those stores. And
the school.
And the schools.
The future bishop used to work for Belks.
Okay.
So
you talking about
he was one of the first Blacks to work at Belks.
You talking about Battle?
Battle, yeah.
Yeah, Battle.
George Battle. He worked
Yeah,
at
Bishop Battle. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
the fact that
that's something we never forget. That it really, what happened in Salisbury, it wasn't like what had happened in so many other communities. There was a lot of tension in other communities that did not exist. It was an undertone here, but when they integrated, they also understood the value of economics, what these African American students and the community could bring to business. It helped the community to not be a segregated, to not have segregated businesses. They made money.
Yeah.
It came down to money.
Money's
Green
green. Money's green. Money's not.
Green
That is critical.
That's
the fact
right.
That the Livingstonian College sit-ins led to the desegregation, not only of public facilities and private facilities, but also employment and other areas. And this is an untold story.
That's right.
Folks, this is a story. What you're talking about, what we're talking about tonight, I haven't read it.
That's right.
I haven't read it. This is an untold story. And we're just touching the tip of this iceberg. And I know that there's a lot to this story. You gentlemen and gentlewomen are bringing this story to us. And it is so important that we get this story told, because the Black Lives Movement and what they're doing today, they're built on this story. They're
Absolutely.
built on this reality. And
That's right.
for them to strategize and do the things that they are doing, which I think is awesome, this story helps them fill in the gaps. These stories, the Stone story, helps them become more deliberate in their movements. I got another question. Okay, in our chat room, this is from Dr. Splon again. Hi, Dr. Splon. Thank you for joining us. How did Livingstone students respond to the protest movement of Tyrone, North Carolina, native Tyrone, North Carolina native Nina Simone? Oh, she was my favorite. I love.
Well, we love Nina Simone's music.
Yeah.
Nina Simone was an activist herself, and she didn't play. And she went around where there were protests and sang free of charge. So Livingstone College students were just like any other student. We knew about Nina Simone. We loved Nina Simone, as well as some of the other entertainers that were prevalent in the movement.
Yes. Nina Simone, I have a personal story. My uncle was a disc jockey, and he played Nina Simone. This is back in the 60s, early 60s. And this is before she on the front of her album, I remember so well, she had on a wig, she had on these shaded eye makeup, and she did not look like the Nina Simone we knew. But I loved her music. She was such a beautiful musician. This is and she was so accomplished. She was so, and I loved her even then. And then when she became an activist, I just
absolutely, yes, indeed.
My wife then. Awesome. We got another. I had another question. To be young, gifted, and black. Yes. Mississippi.
Mississippi. GD.
Oh yeah.
I saw her perform that. Okay. Another question. I heard Duncan and Lash went to the movies, and Duncan fell asleep. He probably did.
Why not? Because it was calm in there. They did go to sleep. They took the time out of their busy schedule to do it for us.
Yeah, and they did that for 2. They did that for 2 weeks. They went to movies.
Oh, get out of here! No, tell me about the 2. What? Tell me. You didn't talk about that part. What did they do for 2 weeks?
Yeah, Dr. Duncan and Wiley Lash will go to the movie every night during the week for 2 weeks, sitting down in the on the bottom downstairs, and
the segregated part.
Right, and then after that, after the 2 weeks, then other students, a certain number of students would do that. And then after 6 weeks, they just integrated the whole system, So
okay, all right. We're about to go, but I got
come as you wish.
Get this back though. Let me sure we got this straight because we don't have but a few minutes left. So the what's the date? The 1962 February. What that date was? The 16th. They were arrested.
The 26, and then on the I think on March 4th, that's when the students decided they would not continue the protest until they could see what was happening with Dr. Duncan and Lash. And after they went to desegregated the movies themselves for 2 weeks, then the other students came for a few more weeks. And then after 6 weeks, the whole thing was integrated. And all other movies were integrated.
That story is awesome. So they went in, sat down for weeks, 2 weeks, in the segregated portion of the theater, bold as they could be. But right. I mean, and this is in 1962. You cannot be any more bold in Salisbury, North Carolina. The president and the officials of Livingstone went and sat down. Right. Then the students followed their lead.
That's right. That's the kind of support we had. That's the kind of support we had.
That's the kind of support and that's where we always need. We need the elders to help. All of us. It's just intergenerational. That's one thing I liked about the civil rights movement. It was intergenerational. It was not, the grandmothers, everybody stood up. Everybody. Now you had your detractors. I think you talked about that earlier, Canard. Right. You have that then. You had that now. You had overseers, black overseers with the women. So we know history. We know that history. But we never gave up. And even in the face of all of the forces, the government forces, the private forces, all of those forces, Livingstone College students, Livingstone College leaders, Livingstone College professionals, Livingstone College staff, and academic leaders went out and stood up and sat down in the theaters. Oh, that's awesome. We run out of time. Okay, so let's say some close. We got only 2 minutes left. I'm sorry, but this has been so inspiring, so thoughtful, so informative. Dr. Canard, Mrs. Dr. Canard.
You can make me one.
Please say a last couple of words for us and also followed by Dr. Norman.
I just want to say that in life, especially this life, we have to be bold. Yes. I don't care who tells us we can't do this and can't do that. As long as we know we're in the right, we have got to be bold and speak up. Amen. And not let anybody turn us around. We have to carry that even today, that the movement continues. That's all I wanted to say. The movement continues.
Movement continues. Dr. Norman.
Right. And if you always go with what's right, because right is not always popular. Yeah. But if it's right, you do it. Amen. And Livingstone has made a lot of contributions to the governments of Rowan and Salisbury School because Kay, she served for 20 years on the school board.
That's right.
Yeah.
And Pete Kennedy served about 20 on the city council. That's our Mary Pons was mayor of Granite Quarry.
That should be our next. That's our next series about the not only what happened in 62, but the lives of the leaders up until now. What did they do with their lives after they got all that training and all that leadership at Livingstone, and they went out into the communities and became strong leaders in communities all over the world. All over the world. All this is awesome. Okay, so our time is up. It's 9 o'clock. I think it will cut us off. I don't know how this works. I think we're going to stop it. And not talking, but we want to thank everybody. We want to thank all of our people who joined us this evening, the living legends of history. This is awesome. Somebody just put in, this is an oral history lesson, and it sure is. Thank you, Mrs. Dr. Canard, Dr. Norman, and we thank the Star of Zion. We thank the AME Zion Church. My dad was an AME Zion minister. We'll get to that the next time. But we thank you, everybody, for joining us and being with us this evening. Thank you again, and please, please be bold.
Thank you.
All right. Peace.
Awesome. Excellent conversation. Hello, Dr. Parrish. Wasn't this just a phenomenal night to share with our fellow Livingstonians?
It was a phenomenal testimony from phenomenal, courageous people in the essence of the civil rights movement, which is noted, right? The movement that helped to spawn a national crisis that forged intervention by federal government to overturn segregation laws, restore voting rights for African Americans, and end legal discrimination in housing, education, employment, and of course, what we're talking about tonight, public accommodations. And I'm just so proud that my fellow Livingstonians they are a part of that history. So because of them, we have a greater social and economic mobility for all African Americans across the nation. So yes, Reverend Brown, this was great. I'm elated for their service. Because of them, you have greater access to resources for women, for religious minorities, and even for historic marginalized communities. Thank you so much for your courage, Livingstonians.
Thank you. I can't help but think of the words of the third stanza of our Livingstone alma mater. Victoria penned the words, along with fleet and nimble feet, oh, hasten on the way, and fling the light of wisdom out across the water's way. And we certainly that these Livingstonians are the epitome of those sentiments expressed by Miss Victoria Rick. We thank them so much for sharing. We are Dr. Charles Price, wildest the fulfillment of his vision. And we thank you, Zion, for continuing to support your chief institution, Livingstone College, because you see the fruit that Livingstone bears. Want to give another shout out to our Chief Communications Officer and Editor-in-Chief of the Star, Mr. Aaron Kent, as he continues to lead us as we fulfill our mission to bring you news that is relevant, reliable, and credible. We want to thank our very special guests. Please go and visit us at www.starofzion.org. Subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can of our episodes of When Freedom Speaks Live. We thank you for tuning in this episode of Freedom Speaks Living Legends. Thank you for hope, Dr. Hassan Crockett. Thank you so much to Mrs. Marjorie Canard, Dr. Norman, and his beautiful wife, who once again is another representation of the fruit that so Mrs. K. Wright Norman. Thank you so much for your presence on tonight. We thank you all so much for and please remember that the place where you can get relevant news. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.
Good evening.